In this video, we are going to see what is JSX and why we need it. So in one of the earlier videos, we already discussed that this sort of HTML-like looking syntax is not HTML, rather it is called JSX in React. So this thing eventually renders a similar HTML in the final rendered page. So this hello world. Okay, you can even clearly see here that corresponding to this, we are going to have a particular div tag inside this, which is essentially created from this only. So it is almost like HTML with a few exceptions, like for example, we discussed that class name is not the class keyword cannot be used in JavaScript, and that's why class name is used instead of class in React, but eventually it translates to class only, so that is fine. Apart from that, a few more differences are there, which I will come to later. A few only are there, but one of them is this thing. So this thing is what? This thing is actually JavaScript only, and in one of the earlier videos we saw that if you go to reactjs.org, the home page, then you'll see a few examples, and there is a tag here. There is a checkbox here where you uncheck it, then you will see the actual thing, the JavaScript thing, which is actually inside that. However, this syntax is just for simplicity, so that it should look like HTML, because essentially React is a library for creating UI, and for creating UI in web pages, HTML is used, right? So why not use a syntax which is already familiar to developers? That's why this sort of syntax is created. Okay, but eventually, as you can see, that thing is just JavaScript only. In fact, you can put your own code here also. So for example, let's take this thing, and let's say we paste it here. Then we'll see that yeah, so let's remove some spaces, and you can see that hello world is printed here corresponding to this. And if you uncheck it, then you can see corresponding this thing. In fact, you can again take this back, and you can write it here also. So if instead of this we would have written this, then also this will work. The only difference is that now this extra variable react is there, which you have to import. So import react from react, and then we are all good to go, which means that this thing is actually exactly equivalent to the earlier thing. So you can see that still it works. So yeah, anything you change, and you can see that it is changing, right? So essentially the same thing, but this thing is pure JavaScript, but somewhat clumsy, right? And that's why we'll go back to the earlier syntax. But the idea is that, right, like document.create element or something is there, similarly React internally has this thing for creating elements, but internally it is also doing the same thing, which we do in general pure JavaScript. In fact, uh, you can understand that why we are doing this, because we don't want to imperatively do all those things which is done in JavaScript. So now if I want to create this piece of UI in HTML, then I know that let's create a page here called, let's say, hello.html, and here we are going to create our own, let's say, some HTML, and here some, let's say, div is there with hello world. Okay, now if you go to here slash hello.html, then you can see that this hello world is there, right? But what if we want to create this dynamically? So let's say this thing is not there, right? Then if this thing is not there, then right now obviously this page will be empty, but you can definitely create your own script tag, and inside that we know that document dot, let's say, add event listener, and on load we want to run our own piece of code which will create that HTML tag. So I can do something like const body. Let's select the body, and that body is going to be our document. It's, in fact, this thing is going to be window dot add event listener, and this thing is going to be document dot let's say get element by tag name. And what is the tag name? Tag name is body. So inside body we have to insert all the tag which we are going to create, and this will return an array sort of thing, HTML collection. So let's take the 0th element of that, and then let's create our own div tag. So let's say div variable is there, which is essentially a new element. Okay, so we can create a div element, we can create and inside this div we can append child, a new text element. So document dot create text node, and that text node is having, say, let's say hello world. Okay, so now inside div we have added a text node. So essentially we are trying to simulate this thing, right? So inside div tag we have added a text node, and the whole div we want to add inside body, right? So let's add that thing. So we can add inside body. So body dot append child. Inside that we are going to insert that div. So if we do this thing, then we'll see that again we are getting the same thing, right? In fact, you can see inside this thing is already created, right? And again, let's say like earlier case, we also want to add class. Then we know all those things that inside any element we can set attribute. Let's say the attribute name is class and the attribute value is app. Okay, then these things we know that now this class app. So you can understand that the same thing, the same sort of HTML which we want, it took us this many lines and a sort of like sort of clumsy code to have the same thing which we are able to do here directly. So essentially, if the React is a library just for creating UI, then why to go with this sort of complicated syntax? So earlier the thing was that generally it is a tendency to create your logic and create your UI separately, right? But React started to move away from this convention, and it said that you know what, this logic part and UI part is not separated, because the logic only derives that what is going to be rendered, and that's why let's put the view and the controller sort of thing, some piece of logic at one place, and let's call it a component. So that is what what is happening here, is that we whatever now we want, we can directly write here, and that can go to any extent, right? So instead of this, we can directly we can also write, let's say, span element here or paragraph element here, whatever is there, and inside that, so all those things will work as it is. Okay, you can go back and you can see that any sort of HTML you want to add, that will work fine, right? So instead of, let's say, now again I have a paragraph thing, and inside that I have a new this is a let's say para, right? Then you can see that as it is, whatever HTML you are writing, directly it is available, right? So it becomes simpler. Rather than doing it from JavaScript, we are doing it through JSX, and as we discussed, actually we are doing everything through JavaScript only, but it's just a simplified syntax, and most of the developers are already aware of HTML syntax, so that will be helpful directly to use in React also. Okay, so that should be it for now. In the next video we are going to see something more about the JSX.